AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law attend my wedding after she lied about my dress. So, a bit of background first. I, 28F, am getting married to my fiancé, Alex, 32M, in about 2 months. The wedding has been a long time coming, and it's been a dream for both of us to have a big celebration. We've had a couple of setbacks, like postponing the wedding twice because of the pandemic, but everything is finally coming together, and we're both really excited. Now, here's where things get a bit messy. My fiancé's sister, Rachel, 34F, has always been difficult. I don't want to sound like I'm being dramatic, but from the moment I started dating Alex, Rachel has been a thorn in my side. She's competitive, overbearing, and has a knack for inserting herself into every situation, even when she's not invited. For example, when Alex and I were planning our engagement, she insisted on being the one to pick my ring design. Even though Alex had already chosen something for me, she kept making unsolicited suggestions. But here's the thing. Up until now, I've tried to play nice because she's family. I've tried to tolerate her in all the family gatherings and special occasions. And while I've never gotten along with her, I've kept my mouth shut and let Alex deal with her. Enter the wedding dress fiasco. About a month ago, I went to a bridal boutique with my mom, my maid of honor, to pick out my wedding dress. I had been dreaming of a certain style for years, and when I found the one, it felt like magic. It was a beautiful, classic design, simple, elegant, with a bit of vintage vibe. I knew it was the one as soon as I put it on. Naturally, I was ecstatic and couldn't wait to show it off to the family. I invited my fiancé's parents and sister over for dinner a couple of weeks later, and during the dinner, I mentioned that I'd finally found my dress. Rachel immediately perked up and asked if she could see it. I told her I'd show her once I had all the alterations finished and everything was perfect. She didn't seem thrilled by this response, but I figured she'd let it go. Well, I was wrong. The following weekend, Rachel showed up at my house unannounced while I was trying on my dress for a final fitting. I was annoyed that she hadn't respected my wishes to wait, but I let her in because, again, she's family. She immediately started criticizing everything. She said the dress didn't show off my best features, that it was too old-fashioned, and that I couldn't pull off the style. Then, she suggested that I should change my whole idea and try something more modern, like a form-fitting dress or something with more sparkle. I told her I appreciated her opinion, but that I had already made my decision. Rachel didn't take kindly to this. She continued to badger me about the dress for the next few days, texting me multiple times asking if I had reconsidered and even suggesting other stores I should visit. I was getting frustrated but tried to keep my cool. A week later, I received a message from Rachel's best friend, Emily. Emily messaged me saying she had heard that I had bought the wrong dress and that everyone thought it was unflattering. When I confronted Rachel about this, she acted completely innocent, claiming she had no idea how the rumor had spread, but maybe it's time to be more open-minded about the dress. At this point, I was furious. I had shared a deeply personal moment with Rachel and the family, and she was not only ignoring my wishes, but actively undermining my decision in a very public way. I took a few days to cool off, but I decided I needed to have a serious conversation with Alex about this. He was very upset when I told him what had happened, and he immediately called his sister to confront her. After that call, Rachel came over to my house to apologize. She claimed she didn't realize how much her comments had hurt me, and she insisted that she just wanted what was best for me. I told her that her behavior was unacceptable and that I didn't want her at the wedding if she couldn't respect my choices. She looked shocked and tried to play the victim, but I stood firm. At that point, she apologized again, but I wasn't sure if she was genuinely sorry or just trying to get back into my good graces. I've since told Alex that I don't want Rachel at the wedding if she's going to continue acting this way. Alex thinks I'm being a bit harsh and that Rachel is just trying to help because she's a bit overenthusiastic. He says that I should just let it go because it's just a dress and that family should be there for the big day. But I feel like if she's going to make my wedding day about her and cause drama, she doesn't deserve to be there. Now, my fiancé is caught in the middle of this and is really upset with me for being so firm about this. He says it's a family event and that Rachel will definitely cause problems if she's not invited, but he also doesn't want to lose his sister over a dress. So, AITA for telling my fiancé's sister she's not welcome at the wedding after everything she did regarding my dress. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for confronting my sister after she invited my ex to my wedding without asking me. I, 29M, am getting married to my fiancée, Jessica, 28F, in a couple of months. We've been together for about 4 years, and things are going great. We have been planning the wedding for over a year, and it's been a dream come true from the venue to the guest list. We're trying to keep it a more intimate affair, so we only invited close family and friends. This included my immediate family, Jessica's family, and a handful of our closest friends. Now, let me explain the situation. My sister, Anna, 32F, and I have always had a pretty close relationship. We've been through a lot together growing up, and she's always been there for me. The problem started when she asked me if she could invite an old friend to the wedding. The person she wanted to invite was my ex-girlfriend, Emma, 30F. I hadn't dated Emma for about 6 years, and while it wasn't a messy breakup, I wouldn't say we ended on the best terms. It wasn't an amicable breakup. She wasn't a terrible person, but we had grown apart, and the relationship had ended on a rather sad note. Since then, we had kept our distance. I didn't stay in touch with her, and I didn't have any interest in rekindling a friendship. At first, I was shocked when Anna brought this up. She explained that Emma and her had kept in touch, and while Emma wasn't a part of my life anymore, she had been a huge part of Anna's life at one point. I get that Anna and Emma were friends, but I couldn't understand why Anna felt the need to invite her to the wedding, especially given the history between Emma and me. I told Anna that I didn't feel comfortable with Emma being there, and that it was my wedding, and I didn't think it would be appropriate. Anna seemed upset, but she dropped it for the time being. Then, a few weeks ago, my fiancé and I were going over the guest list again, making sure everything was in order. That's when I found out Anna had invited Emma anyway, without asking me again. It was right there on the list. Emma? I was furious. I immediately called Anna, demanding an explanation. She tried to justify it by saying that Emma was her friend too, and that she didn't think I would mind since I wasn't really in touch with her anymore. I told Anna that it wasn't just about being in touch with Emma or not. It was about respect. I made it clear that I didn't want her at the wedding, and she had gone behind my back to invite her anyway. Anna then accused me of being petty. She said I was trying to control her guest list and that I was acting like a child. I told her that inviting my ex to my wedding, especially when I specifically told her not to, was a huge violation of trust. It felt like she was putting her friendship with Emma above my feelings, and I couldn't understand why she would do that. Things got heated, and I ended up telling Anna that if Emma was coming, I'd rather she not come at all. I also told her that I was really hurt that she would disregard my wishes on such an important day. Anna seemed taken aback, and she got upset too, saying that I was blowing everything out of proportion. We ended the conversation with her saying she'd think about it, but that she was still planning on inviting Emma. Since then, things have been really tense between us. I've tried to talk to Anna multiple times to get to the bottom of why she was so adamant about inviting Emma, but she just keeps brushing it off and accusing me of being unreasonable. Jessica, my fiancée, is on my side, and she thinks it's incredibly disrespectful of Anna to invite someone I'm not comfortable with. But I can tell she's also uncomfortable with how much this is affecting my relationship with my sister. The wedding is in 2 months, and I don't want to go into it with this unresolved tension. I love my sister, but I feel like she's disrespecting me and my wishes, and it's causing a rift between us. I'm starting to feel like she doesn't understand the importance of setting boundaries in relationships, and it's making me question how much she values our relationship versus her own personal desires. AITA for telling my sister she can't invite Emma to my wedding and for confronting her about it in the way I did. Should I have handled it differently? Or am I justified in drawing a hard line here? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the way she treated me? So, I, 28F, have a younger sister, Claire, 25F, who is getting married in a couple of months. To give some background, Claire and I have always had a complicated relationship. We were close growing up, but things started changing when I went off to college. I don't know exactly when it started, but over the last few years, I started noticing that Claire was becoming increasingly distant and, honestly, a little cruel. To be fair, I've had my share of struggles too, graduating during the pandemic, dealing with the stress of starting a career, and struggling to manage my mental health. But Claire seemed to have a way of exacerbating everything, constantly comparing me to her perfect life, which was exactly what I didn't need during a time when I was already struggling. A couple of years ago, Claire and I had a major falling out. I was going through a rough patch and was relying on family for support. I asked Claire if she could help me out, maybe just listen for a bit. Instead of being there for me, she pretty much brushed me off. Her response was something like, well, maybe you wouldn't be in this mess if you'd just make better choices. I don't have time for this. I was devastated, especially since she's always been the one to tell me how much she has it all together. Over time, Claire's behavior just got worse. Whenever we'd hang out with family, she'd drop passive-aggressive comments about how easy my life must be compared to hers, or how I needed to get my act together like she had. But that wasn't even the worst of it. When I started dating someone seriously last year, she treated my boyfriend, Ben, terribly. She'd make fun of his job. He works as a mechanic, which she considered beneath her, and would constantly ask him if he was really sure he wanted to be with someone like me. She even tried to convince me to break up with him once, saying I could do better, and that he was holding me back. Anyway, fast forward to now, Claire got engaged last year, and almost immediately, she started planning the wedding. From the beginning, it seemed like she was going out of her way to make everything about her and make it clear that she was the superior sibling. At one point, she told me, in front of my parents, that I was too old to still be single and shouldn't be jealous of her finding someone so perfect. But here's where I need advice. The wedding invitations went out recently, and when I opened mine, I noticed that I wasn't included in the bridal party. I figured it was an oversight, so I mentioned it casually to Claire. She looked at me and said, "Oh, I just didn't think you'd be up for it. You've always been so negative about everything lately, and honestly, I don't think I want to make my day about you. I'll just have my best friends up there, and it'll be more fun." I was shocked, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I just left it at that. But it kept bothering me. I'm not saying I deserve to be in the bridal party, but after all the time we spent together growing up, I thought I at least deserved a little more respect than that. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't just about being a bridesmaid. It was about how Claire has treated me over the last few years. She hasn't once apologized for any of her actions or words, and she's constantly dismissive when I try to talk about my feelings. I've tried talking to her multiple times about how her behavior has hurt me, but she just brushes me off like it's nothing. It's honestly exhausting. A few days ago, I made a decision that I thought I wouldn't ever be able to make. I told her that I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I didn't give a detailed explanation, just that I wasn't comfortable with the way things had gone between us and that I needed space. She didn't take it well. She accused me of being selfish and ruining her special day, and now my parents and extended family are all calling me, telling me I'm making a huge mistake and that I'll regret it. The thing is, I don't feel like I'm being selfish. I've tried for years to maintain a relationship with Claire, and she's only pushed me away or treated me poorly. Every time I try to stand up for myself, I'm labeled as the problem. I'm at a point now where I'm just exhausted by it all, and I don't think I should have to force myself to celebrate someone who has made me feel small for years. So, AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she won't allow my daughter to be a flower girl? So some background. I, 28F, have a sister, 26F, who is getting married in a few months. I've always been close to my sister, but things have changed over the past couple of years. We were raised in a pretty strict household, and for a while, my sister was the perfect child. Never caused any trouble, got straight A's, etc. I was the rebellious one who always seemed to be in trouble. As we got older, though, we drifted apart. We were both busy with our own lives, and even though we'd keep in touch, the bond we once had wasn't the same. I got married about 3 years ago, and while my sister wasn't as involved as I would have liked, she still attended my wedding and gave me a gift. No drama or anything. Fast forward to now, and my sister is getting married, and I'm excited for her. But then, things took a turn when we started discussing her wedding details. I have a 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, and she's been begging me to let her be a flower girl ever since my sister got engaged. Sophie absolutely adores her aunt and was beyond excited when she found out about the wedding. I thought it would be a really sweet moment for her to be involved and for my sister to have someone close to her family take part in the wedding. I reached out to my sister and asked if Sophie could be the flower girl. To my surprise, my sister immediately shut it down. She told me that she had already chosen the flower girl, her best friend's daughter, who is the same age as Sophie, and that it was non-negotiable. I was a little taken aback, but I didn't think much of it at first. I assumed she just had everything planned out, and I respected that. Then, a few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine, aka my mom, that my sister had been talking about how she didn't want any of our kids involved in the wedding at all. Apparently, she had issues with how my daughter behaves and that she wasn't well-behaved enough to be a flower girl. This really stung me. I know Sophie can be a little energetic and sometimes gets a bit loud, but she's a good kid, and she's been to other weddings without causing a scene. I called my sister up to ask if this was true, and she admitted that it was. She said she didn't want any disruptions during the ceremony, and Sophie's behavior was too unpredictable. She also mentioned that she didn't want any of her nieces or nephews to be part of the wedding because they might take attention away from the important parts. To me, that felt like a slap in the face. I tried to keep my cool during the conversation, but it was hard. I told her I understood that she wanted the day to be perfect, but I also expressed that it hurt me that she was excluding my daughter. I mentioned that Sophie really looked up to her and was so excited about being a part of her special day, and it felt like she was making Sophie feel unimportant. My sister's response was basically that Sophie needed to learn to be more like other kids, implying that she needed to be quieter and more obedient to fit in with her idea of the perfect wedding. This whole thing just didn't sit right with me, and I started to get really upset. I tried to talk to my mom about it, but she just said that I should let it go and that it's her wedding and I should support her no matter what. But I couldn't shake the feeling that my sister was being unfair, especially since I had always been supportive of her throughout our lives, even if we weren't as close as we once were. The tipping point came when I found out that my sister had gone on social media to post about how her flower girl was the most adorable thing ever, and how she had always dreamed of having the perfect little flower girl who was just like her, and other similar comments. That's when it really hit me. She was basically saying that Sophie wasn't good enough to be the flower girl. I was fuming at this point. I decided to call her one more time and express how hurt I was. I told her that I didn't appreciate her comments, and that I felt like she was excluding not just Sophie, but me as well. I also mentioned that it didn't feel right to support her wedding when she was treating my daughter this way. I told her that at this point, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to attend her wedding. Her response? If you can't respect my wishes, then maybe it's better if you don't come. I was shocked, but I told her I needed some time to think about it. After hanging up, I sat down and talked with my husband. He's been very supportive of me throughout all of this, but he also pointed out that this was a huge decision. He reminded me that weddings are often about family, and if I didn't attend, it might cause permanent damage to our relationship with my sister. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't comfortable attending a wedding where I felt like I wasn't wanted, and neither was my daughter. I wasn't going to force Sophie into an uncomfortable situation, and I didn't think I should have to beg my sister to accept my daughter as she is. So, I made the decision to tell her that I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I sent her a text explaining that I didn't feel right supporting her wedding when she was treating Sophie this way, and that I needed her to understand how much this had hurt me. I told her that while I respected her wedding and her choices, I couldn't be part of it under these circumstances. I also said that I didn't want to keep arguing about it, and that I thought it would be best if we took some space. Since then, she hasn't responded to me. I haven't heard a word from her. My mom has been texting me nonstop, telling me that I'm being childish and that I should get over it because it's just a wedding. She said I was making a big deal out of nothing and that I was being selfish for not putting my sister's happiness first. Now, I'm feeling torn. On one hand, I feel like I did what was right for me and my daughter. But on the other hand, I feel guilty about causing a rift in my family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she's treating my daughter. AITA for refusing to let my friend stay with me after she cheated on her boyfriend and then lied to me about it. I, 28F, have a close group of friends. We've known each other since college, and while we've all drifted a bit in terms of proximity, different states, different cities, etc., we still try to keep in touch as much as possible. Among my group, they're my best friend, Anna, 30F. Anna and I have always been super close, like sisters. I've been through a lot with her, and she's been there for me through some pretty difficult times in my life. A few months ago, Anna went through a pretty rough breakup. She had been dating Ben, 32M, for about 4 years, and everything seemed fine between them, at least from what I could see. I knew she had started having doubts about the relationship, but she seemed genuinely conflicted, not sure if she wanted to end things. Ben, on the other hand, was always really kind to me and everyone else, so I figured they just had typical relationship problems and would work things out. Then one day, Anna called me out of the blue. She was crying, really upset, and said that she had done something horrible and needed my help. She told me that she had cheated on Ben with someone she met at work, and now she didn't know what to do. She said she regretted it, and that it had been a one-time mistake. I told her I was really sorry she was going through this, and that I would support her, but I also told her she needed to come clean of Ben. I emphasized that lying about it or sweeping it under the rug wasn't going to help anyone. Here's where things started to get really complicated. Anna came over to my place that night, and we talked for hours. She seemed genuinely remorseful, but at the same time, I could tell there was something she wasn't telling me. She said she was planning to break up with Ben, but wanted to wait a little while to figure things out and give him some closure. She begged me to keep this secret from him, saying that telling him would ruin everything and that she would tell him eventually. I told her I didn't agree with that, but I didn't push her. She promised me she would be honest with him soon. I thought that was the end of it. Fast forward 2 months. Anna and I were talking more regularly, and she still hadn't told Ben anything. At first, I try not to judge, but eventually I started to feel like she was avoiding the truth. Then things took a bizarre turn. Anna called me again, but this time she said she was planning to move in with me temporarily. She told me that Ben had found out about the cheating, though she didn't give me any details, and was devastated. She said that he kicked her out, and now she had nowhere to go. I was shocked, but didn't question it too much at first. She was my best friend, and of course, I'd let her stay with me if she needed it. But then things started to feel off. Anna asked me for money to cover some of her rent and utilities, even though she had a decent job and was, as far as I knew, financially stable. I didn't mind lending her the money at first, but it just felt like she was taking advantage of my generosity. She also started acting strangely, like she was hiding something. One night, she went out to meet some friends and came back smelling like a different cologne. I didn't want to assume anything, but I felt like I was being lied to again. A few days later, I confronted Anna. I told her that I didn't appreciate the secrecy, and I wanted to know what was really going on. That's when she finally admitted something that shocked me to my core. She hadn't actually been kicked out by Ben. In fact, she had been seeing the guy she cheated on him with, and she had been dating him the entire time while still pretending to be broken up with him. She told me that she hadn't told Ben the full truth because she was afraid of losing both him and the guy she was seeing. I felt betrayed. Anna had lied to me, not once, but multiple times. She used my support, and now she was playing both sides. When I pressed her about why she had lied, she said she didn't want to lose our friendship and was afraid I would judge her. But this wasn't about judgment, it was about honesty. She had put me in a horrible position, and I felt like I had been supporting her cheating and manipulation without even realizing it. I told her that I couldn't let her stay with me anymore. She had lied, manipulated the situation, and was now expecting me to be her safety net while she juggled her lies. I told her that she needed to take responsibility for her actions and figure things out on her own. She begged me to let her stay, saying she had nowhere else to go, but I stood firm. I told her that I couldn't support her in this way, not when she was actively hurting other people, including me. She stormed out of my apartment, and we haven't spoken since. Now I feel torn. On one hand, I know I did the right thing by standing up for my own boundaries and not enabling her behavior. On the other hand, I feel guilty. and has always been there for me in tough times, and I know she's struggling right now. But I can't help feeling like she took advantage of my kindness and trust, and that she never really valued my support unless it suited her. I've been thinking a lot about whether I should reach out and try to make amends, but part of me feels like I'd just be allowing her to continue treating me like a doormat. I don't know if I can go back to being close friends with her after all of this, but I'm also scared I'm being too harsh. AITA for refusing to let my friend stay with me and cutting her off after everything she's done. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my house after they broke up. So, some context. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 24F. Emma and I have always been close growing up, but things have gotten a little complicated over the last few years, especially since she started dating her now ex-fiancé, Ryan, 26M. At first, I was really happy for her. She seemed to be in a good relationship. They had been together for about 3 years, and she was planning to get married soon. However, over time, I started seeing some red flags with Ryan. He wasn't necessarily abusive or anything, but he always seemed to have this arrogant, entitled attitude, and I often caught him making snarky comments about my lifestyle choices, my job, and my friends. I'm not one to get into family drama, so I mostly kept my distance and focused on my own life. I've been living on my own for a few years now in a modest but comfortable 2-bedroom house. I don't make a ton of money, but I'm doing well for myself, and I've always been pretty independent. Fast forward to about 2 months ago, and Emma called me one night in a complete panic. She told me she had broken up with Ryan, and it was a huge mess. Apparently, he had been cheating on her for months with some woman he met at work. Emma found out when she went through his phone, and it led to a huge blowout. She kicked him out of their apartment, and he's been crashing at his friend's place. Emma was devastated, obviously, and she asked if she could stay with me for a little while to clear her head. Of course, I told her she could stay, no problem, and I tried to be supportive while she navigated through the breakup. Here's where things get complicated. A week after Emma moved in, Ryan started texting me. At first, I ignored the messages because I had no interest in getting involved in their drama, but he kept texting, calling, and even showing up at my door asking if he could come in and talk to me. It was clear he was trying to work things out with Emma, and I made it very clear that I didn't want to get involved in their relationship problems. Eventually, he started asking if he could move into my place until he could figure things out. I told him that wasn't going to happen, and I honestly thought that would be the end of it. I'm not going to open my door to the guy who just cheated on my sister, especially when he has no respect for personal boundaries. A few days later, Emma came to me, looking upset. She told me that Ryan had been begging her for another chance, and she was considering it. I couldn't believe it. I told her I didn't think it was a good idea and that she deserved better than him. But Emma was torn. She loved him, and she wasn't ready to let go of the relationship. I didn't want to push her too hard, but I also made it clear that I wouldn't let Ryan stay at my place, especially if they were going to try to work things out. That was a hard line for me. A couple of weeks went by, and Emma told me she had decided to give Ryan another chance. I was disappointed, but didn't want to make her feel like I was against her decision. However, things took a turn when Ryan came over to pick up some of his things. He asked if he could stay at my house for a few days while he found a new place. Again, I said no. I told him I wasn't comfortable with him being there, especially after everything that happened. He got angry and told me I was being unfair, that I was holding a grudge, and that I needed to get over it. He said I was being ridiculous and that I should just let him stay so he could get his life back together. I refused, and Ryan stormed off, calling me a heartless bitch as he left. I didn't hear from him for a while after that, but Emma was not happy with me. She told me I was being too hard on Ryan, that I was creating unnecessary drama, and that I should let him stay with me for a while so he could get his life together. She said I was being selfish for not supporting her relationship. I tried to explain to her that I was only protecting her, that I didn't trust Ryan, but she didn't seem to see it that way. Now, this is where I might be the asshole. I got frustrated with Emma and told her that if she was going to choose Ryan over me, then I wasn't sure I could keep being supportive of her. I told her she couldn't have it both ways. She couldn't expect me to be there for her when she needed me, but also demand that I accept Ryan back into my life. I even told her that I would not be okay with them continuing their relationship if she was going to let him back in her life, especially if he was going to keep disrespecting me like he had been doing. I thought I was just setting a boundary, but Emma ended up in tears and told me that I was being harsh and that I was putting her in a terrible position. After that conversation, she hasn't really spoken to me much. She's still staying with me, but it's been tense, and I don't know where we stand. Ryan still hasn't contacted me, but I know Emma and him are still trying to work things out. I'm not sure if I've done the right thing, and I'm feeling really torn. On the one hand, I feel like I'm just protecting my sister and setting boundaries, but on the other hand, I feel like I might have pushed her away when she needed support the most. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my house after they broke up. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she called me a failure and a disappointment. So here's the thing. I, 27F, have an older sister, Emily, 30F, who's always been the golden child in our family. She's pretty, successful, married to a great guy, and on paper, she seems like she has it all together. Then there's me. I've had a rougher time with my career. I've been in a couple of long-term relationships that didn't work out, and honestly, I'm still figuring things out. But I've always been independent and managed to make it through life, even if I'm not at the place I thought I'd be by 27. Emily is getting married next month, and she asked me to be her maid of honor. At first, I was honored, and I genuinely thought it would be a special role for me. But as time went on, I started realizing that Emily wasn't treating me like a real maid of honor. Instead, it felt more like I was her personal assistant. She would ask me to handle things like finding and booking vendors, calling venues, managing guest lists, and even picking out decorations. It wasn't just the wedding stuff either. She also asked me to help with her bridal shower, bachelorette party, and even some family things that weren't directly wedding related. I'm a full-time worker, and I have my own commitments and life to juggle, but I kept going because it was for my sister. However, things took a turn when Emily started making passive-aggressive comments about me not doing enough. She would say things like, "I don't know why you're being so lazy about this. You're the maid of honor." Or, "It's so easy for you to just show up and look pretty, but I'm doing all the real work." I brushed it off for a while, thinking she was stressed out or just venting. But then it started getting worse. A few weeks ago, I was having a conversation with our parents about how things had been going with the wedding planning, and I mentioned how overwhelmed I was. I hadn't even gotten a chance to go dress shopping for myself yet because I was so busy doing everything else for Emily. I said, "I feel like I'm barely getting time to enjoy the lead up to the wedding because I'm doing everything for her." Emily overheard and blew up. She called me selfish and said I should be honored to help her, that I was ruining her special time. She accused me of not caring about her wedding and being jealous of her happiness. I tried to explain that I was happy for her, but I also wanted to feel like I was part of the celebration, not just someone running errands in the background. But she wasn't having it. The next day, things escalated when she told me that I was a failure and that it was embarrassing to have me as her maid of honor when I didn't have my life together. She even said that I was a disappointment to the family, which stung, because while I know my life isn't perfect, it feels like no one in the family ever really acknowledges my accomplishments. At this point, I was so hurt and fed up that I told her I couldn't be her maid of honor anymore. I said that if she wanted someone to take on all the responsibilities and be treated like a second-class citizen in her wedding, she should find someone else. I explained that I would still attend the wedding, but I was no longer willing to be her personal assistant or take the abuse. She went ballistic, calling me dramatic and saying that I was making everything about myself. Our parents are now mad at me, saying that I should have just manned up and done my job as maid of honor, and that I was being petty for backing out. Emily has since told everyone in our extended family that I ruined her wedding plans and made it all about me. Now, my aunts, uncles, and cousins are all calling me selfish and telling me I've lost the privilege of being part of the family if I can't support Emily on her big day. I know I could have handled the situation differently, but I'm honestly feeling burned out. I'm working hard to build my own career and figure things out, and I've never asked anyone for help. I don't think I should be treated like a doormat just because I'm family. But now I'm second-guessing myself. Was I wrong to back out of being her maid of honor after all of that? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law live with me after she threw away all of my stuff because she didn't like my lifestyle. I, 29F, have been living in my own place for the past 2 years, and while it's small, it's mine. It's a cozy little apartment in a quiet neighborhood, and it's the perfect space for me. I work from home, so I've set it up exactly how I want it. Lots of plants, a couple of cozy throw blankets, a few art prints, and some vintage furniture I've been collecting. I put a lot of work into making my space feel like a reflection of me, and it's where I feel at peace. My sister-in-law, Emma, 32F, has been going through a rough patch lately. She and her husband, my brother, Jake, have been having financial problems for months. Jake lost his job at the beginning of the year, and despite putting in a lot of effort, he hasn't found a new one yet. They've been living off savings, but they're quickly running out of money, and Emma has been very stressed about the situation. To make matters worse, she and Jake recently had a huge falling out, and she ended up moving out of their shared home to stay with their parents. A few weeks ago, Emma reached out to me, asking if she could stay at my place temporarily. She explained that she didn't want to go back to her parents' house because of the tension there, and that it would just be for a little while until she figured things out. I wasn't sure at first, but I agreed. I told her that I didn't have a lot of space, but she was welcome to stay as long as she needed to. I made it clear that I had a very particular way of organizing things and that I valued my personal space and routine. She said she understood, and I thought it would be okay. I didn't expect things to get so bad. The first few days were fine. Emma was quiet, kept to herself, and mostly stayed in the guest room. I even helped her update her resume and suggested a few job leads. But after about a week, things started to change. I noticed small things being out of place. A vase I had on the coffee table was moved, my favorite blanket was on the floor in the living room, and a few of my plants looked like they'd been rearranged. I didn't say anything at first, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid. But then, I came home from work one day to find that Emma had thrown out 2 of my vintage chairs, the ones I'd spent months hunting for at antique shops. I was devastated. These chairs were a huge deal to me, both because of how hard I worked to find them and because they held sentimental value from a time when I was trying to put my life back together after a tough breakup. I immediately asked her what happened, and she told me she didn't like the way they clashed with the vibe of the apartment and that I could replace them with something more modern. I was furious. I tried to keep my cool and explained how much those chairs meant to me, but she brushed me off, saying I was overreacting and that I should just let it go. She also casually mentioned that I had too many plants and that the apartment would look less cluttered without them. At this point, I was seriously upset, but I didn't want to make a scene. I told her that I needed some time alone and asked her to leave the room. The next day, I came home to find that my entire bookshelf had been rearranged. Books I hadn't read in years had been discarded, and a lot of my favorite novels were nowhere to be found. I confronted Emma about it, and she told me that my books were a waste of space and that I should focus on more practical things. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't her home, and I had never given her permission to start rearranging my life in the way she saw fit. I asked her again to leave my apartment for a little while to give me space to cool off, but she refused. She said she had nowhere else to go and that I was being selfish by not supporting her. It all came to a head 2 days later when I came home to find that she had gone through my closet, taken a bunch of clothes I had been holding onto for years, and donated them without asking. Some of them were from trips I had taken with friends, and some were sentimental pieces that had meaning to me. When I confronted her, she said she didn't understand why I was attached to so many old things and that I should move on from my past. She accused me of being overly attached to material things and said I needed to learn to let go. At this point, I had had enough. I told her that she needed to leave immediately. I was angry, hurt, and felt completely disrespected in my own home. I explained that I had offered her a temporary place to stay, not for her to come in and take control of my space. She started crying, telling me I was being cruel and that I didn't care about her or her problems. She said that I was too focused on my stuff and that if I really cared about her, I would let her stay and help her get through this rough time. I told her that I couldn't be expected to let her disrespect my boundaries like this, and I asked her to pack up and leave. Since then, my brother and my parents have called me multiple times, saying that I'm being unreasonable. They claim that I'm too attached to material things and that Emma needs my support more than ever. They've also pointed out that I could have been more patient with her since she's going through a lot, and I should have been more understanding. I feel guilty, but at the same time, I'm still upset by everything she did in my home. I don't know if I was too harsh by asking her to leave, but I don't think I should have to tolerate someone treating my home like it's theirs to rearrange. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law live with me after she threw away all my stuff and disrespected my boundaries? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for not letting my sister stay with me after she disrespected my house rules and used my personal belongings without asking. I, 29F, have always been very clear about my boundaries, especially when it comes to my personal space and belongings. I'm a very organized person, and I've worked hard to create a space that feels comfortable and safe for me. I live alone in a modest 2-bedroom apartment, and while it's not much, it's my sanctuary. I take pride in keeping it clean and maintaining control over what goes in and out of my space. My younger sister, Katie, 24F, is the complete opposite. She's spontaneous, messy, and can be a bit inconsiderate, to put it lightly. I love her to death, but she has a tendency to take liberties with things that don't belong to her. Growing up, she would always borrow my clothes without asking, take my things without permission, and generally disregard the rules I set for myself and my belongings. It's something I've had to learn to deal with, and it's definitely caused some tension between us over the years. A few weeks ago, Katie was going through a tough time. She had just broken up with her long-term boyfriend and was struggling to find her footing. She called me, asking if she could stay with me for a few days until she figured things out. I'm not heartless, so of course I agreed. I know she's been through a lot, and I figured a few days of support wouldn't be too much to handle. I made it clear from the start, though, that I had certain rules when it came to living in my space. For one, I don't allow anyone to go through my things without asking. That includes my closet, my drawers, and especially my bathroom items. I've had issues in the past with her borrowing things without permission and not returning them, so I made sure to reiterate this rule. I also let her know that I expected her to respect my space and keep the apartment tidy. I don't mind a little mess, but I didn't want to deal with the chaos that sometimes comes with her. The first couple of days went fine. Katie seemed to be making an effort to respect my space, and we spent some time catching up and talking about everything she was going through. However, things started to go south after the third day. One evening, I came home from work to find the living room in complete disarray. The couch cushions were thrown all over the place, empty takeout containers were scattered around, and the TV was blaring. I asked Katie about it, and she casually shrugged it off, saying she was just chilling and had been too tired to clean up. I reminded her of the house rules and told her I would appreciate it if she could clean up after herself. She apologized and promised to tidy up, but I could tell she wasn't really taking me seriously. Later that week, I noticed something even more disturbing. I went into my bathroom to grab some toiletries and realized that some of my personal items, specifically my hair care products and skincare items, were missing. I was immediately frustrated. These are not cheap products, and I'm very particular about what I use on my skin and hair. I found out that Katie had taken them without asking and used them. When I confronted her, she seemed unfazed and told me that she just borrowed them because she didn't have anything with her. I reminded her that I had specifically told her not to use my things without asking, and she brushed it off like it was no big deal. The final straw came a couple of days later. I went into my closet to find that one of my expensive jackets, one I had saved up for months to buy, was missing. I immediately texted her, asking if she had taken it. She responded with a nonchalant, "Yeah, I wore it earlier. It's in my room." I was livid. Not only had she gone against my very clear request not to use my things without asking, but she had also just taken something that meant a lot to me without even bothering to ask or return it. At this point, I'd had enough. I told Katie that I could no longer allow her to stay with me. I told her that she needed to find somewhere else to stay because she had disrespected my house rules and my personal boundaries. She was shocked and hurt, claiming that I was being unreasonable and that she was going through a rough time and needed me. I told her I understood that, but that didn't mean she had the right to ignore my boundaries. I explained that I wasn't mad at her for needing support, but that I couldn't tolerate the lack of respect for my space and belongings. Katie ended up calling our parents, who tried to mediate the situation. My mom said that I was being too hard on her and that I should have let it slide because of everything Katie was going through. She said I could have been more understanding and given her a little more leeway. My dad was a bit more neutral, but said I should have given Katie more of a chance to explain herself before kicking her out. Now, I'm second-guessing myself. Part of me feels like I did the right thing. After all, my boundaries are important, and I've been clear with her from the start. But another part of me feels guilty because Katie is going through a tough time, and maybe I could have been more understanding. So, AITA for kicking my sister out after she ignored my house rules and disrespected my belongings? Should I have let it slide and tried to work things out? Or was I right to prioritize my boundaries over her needs? AITA for refusing to help my sister pay for her wedding after she disinvited me for being too poor. I, 28F, have always been close to my sister, 30F, and we grew up in a small town. Our family wasn't wealthy, but we had enough, and my parents always made sure we had what we needed. I got a full scholarship to college and managed to graduate without debt, and I worked hard to land a job in a tech company right after graduation. My sister, on the other hand, dropped out of college to follow her high school boyfriend, who ended up being a total deadbeat. She eventually got a decent office job, but it's nowhere near what I make. When my sister got engaged to her boyfriend of 2 years, I was genuinely happy for her. They were planning a big wedding, her dream wedding. She's always been someone who fantasized about big, glamorous events and having all the bells and whistles. My family was on board with helping out, and I offered to pitch in as much as I could. But I also told her that while I would love to contribute, I'd be doing so within the limits of my budget. I didn't want to overcommit to something that could strain my finances. Things were fine at first. We had some awkward moments when she would mention her extravagant plans, and I would try to reel it in, but I chalked it up to wedding stress. Then about a month before the wedding, I got an unexpected email from my sister. She was inviting me to a family-only pre-wedding dinner, and that's when the bombshell hit. In the email, she mentioned that after discussing with her fiancé, they both decided it would be best if I didn't attend the wedding. She said, "It's not personal, but we're trying to keep things more intimate, and there are financial limitations with the venue and everything." She explained that she wanted a very specific kind of guest list, which included only people she felt could add to the energy of the event, and that unfortunately, I just didn't fit that vibe. She also mentioned that she thought I'd be uncomfortable with the extravagance of the wedding, especially with the cost of the reception, and that it would be a lot less stressful for me if I just didn't come. I was completely blindsided by the disinvitation. I had been looking forward to celebrating her big day, and I couldn't believe she would just remove me like that, especially after everything I had done for her in the past. I had supported her during tough times, helped her financially when she was in a jam, and even made sacrifices to spend time with her, despite our very different financial situations. I immediately called her to ask what this was all about. She explained that it wasn't about money, but that she just didn't think we had the same lifestyle anymore, and she didn't want the disparity to cause tension. She said that I shouldn't feel bad, and that I should understand because she just didn't want me to feel uncomfortable at her perfect day. I was beyond hurt. I told her I felt completely excluded and disrespected, especially since I had been nothing but supportive. She said I was overreacting and that I shouldn't make it about me. She also mentioned that if I really wanted to, I could still contribute financially to the wedding like I had offered before and be involved behind the scenes, but attending as a guest was off the table. I tried to process this and asked her if there was any way we could work through this. I didn't expect to be the maid of honor or anything, but I felt like I deserved at least a place at her wedding. She said I needed to let it go, that I wasn't being understanding of how much pressure she was under to make the day perfect, and that people like us just couldn't understand the level of responsibility involved in organizing such an event. I spent the next few days feeling angry, hurt, and confused. I felt like she had treated me as if I was some kind of charity case and that my presence at her wedding would somehow tarnish the experience for her. It felt like a slap in the face, especially since I had always tried to be supportive of her, even when I knew we were on different financial levels. After a few days of thinking it over, I came to a decision. I told her I wasn't going to contribute financially to the wedding at all, and I would not be attending, as she had essentially made it clear that I wasn't welcome. I said that if she was going to treat me like an outsider, then I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. My sister was furious. She called me a drama queen and said that I was acting like a victim. She accused me of making her wedding about me and said I was being selfish for not understanding her perspective. She even went as far as to tell me that I wasn't being supportive of her at all, that this was going to ruin our relationship. The rest of my family was divided. Some thought I was right for standing up for myself and not letting her treat me like that, while others thought I was being overly sensitive and needed to just get over it. My mom has been sending me messages telling me I should apologize, but I can't shake the feeling that my sister is the one who owes me an apology. It's been a few weeks since this whole thing went down, and I haven't heard from my sister. I know her wedding is coming up, and I can't help but feel a mix of resentment and sadness. I've always wanted to be there for her, but now it feels like she's the one who's made things impossible. So, AITA for refusing to help pay for my sister's wedding after she disinvited me for being too poor. AITA for telling my sister-in-law she's not welcome at my wedding because of what she did to my best friend. So, some backstory. I, 29F, am getting married in a few months to my fiancé, 30M, whom I'll call Jake. We've been together for 5 years, and we're having what I hope will be a beautiful, low-key wedding. I have a small group of people that I really want to attend, just close friends, family, and a few extended relatives. One of the people I invited was my best friend, Sarah, 29F, who I've known since we were 10. She's honestly like a sister to me. Now, here's where things get a little complicated. My fiancé's sister, Amy, 27F, and I have never really gotten along. She's always been a bit difficult, sort of passive-aggressive, a little entitled, and doesn't respect boundaries. It's been an ongoing issue in our relationship, but I've done my best to tolerate her, especially since Jake is very close to her. About a year ago, Amy did something that completely crossed a line with me and, more importantly, with Sarah. It all started when Sarah and I were talking about wedding planning, and she mentioned how she'd been working on a new business idea that she was really excited about. Sarah is an incredibly talented woman and has a real passion for event planning, and she was looking into starting her own business. I knew she'd be great at it, and I encouraged her to pursue it. At the time, Amy had just been talking nonstop about her own business ideas, and I didn't think much of it. But then, I found out that Amy had gotten in touch with Sarah's business partner behind her back and pitched a very similar business idea, offering to collaborate in a way that essentially hijacked Sarah's plans. At first, Sarah was calm about it and tried to let it go, but it became clear that Amy wasn't backing down. She tried to steal Sarah's clients, she undermined her with vendors, and she basically sabotaged Sarah's reputation in the industry. Sarah was devastated when she realized what Amy had been doing. She had trusted her, and Amy had used that trust to try to destroy her business. It wasn't just a professional betrayal, it was personal. Sarah eventually confronted Amy about it, and Amy acted like it was no big deal, saying things like, "You're just not cut out for business, and you should be grateful I'm helping you make connections." Sarah was hurt, and honestly, I was furious. This wasn't just about competition. It was about Amy trying to tear down someone I care about. I tried to talk to Jake about it, but every time I brought it up, he defended his sister, brushing off her behavior as just how Amy is. He kept saying I was overreacting and that Amy didn't mean any harm. But the truth is, she had been openly trying to sabotage Sarah, and I just couldn't let that slide. My best friend was in pain, and the person who caused it was about to be at my wedding. After some reflection, I made the decision that I didn't want Amy there. It felt like a huge ask, but I was firm in my belief that someone who could treat my best friend like that didn't deserve to be at such an important event. I spoke to Jake about it, and he didn't take it well. He said that I was overreacting and that Amy would be hurt if I didn't invite her. I explained that I didn't think I could sit through my wedding with someone who had so publicly disrespected someone I love. Jake told me it wasn't the time to be making decisions like this, and that we needed to just move on from it. I told him I'd made my decision, and that Amy was not welcome. He was angry, but agreed to talk to his sister about it. When he told Amy, she was beyond upset. She immediately called me and demanded to know why I wasn't inviting her. She accused me of being childish and petty, saying that if I really cared about my wedding, I'd let go of the past. She said she was going to be heartbroken if she wasn't invited, but honestly, I didn't feel bad at all. She was the one who had caused all of this, and she wasn't showing any remorse. Amy then went to my family, and some of them began questioning my decision. They said I was being unfair and that I was letting my friendship with Sarah ruin my relationship with Jake. Some of them even said that I was causing unnecessary drama and that Amy was a part of the family now, and I should just get over it. This put me in a really tough spot, especially since I didn't want to cause a rift in my relationship with Jake, but I also couldn't ignore how toxic Amy's behavior had been. Jake and I have had a few fights about it. He's told me that I'm causing problems over something that happened a while ago, and that I'm letting it overshadow what should be a joyous occasion. He keeps saying that he's caught in the middle, and that I'm putting him in an impossible position. Now, I'm starting to second-guess myself. Maybe I'm being too harsh. It's not like Amy has tried to make amends. She's still acting like nothing happened, but maybe I could just move past it for the sake of the wedding. But at the same time, I don't feel comfortable having someone who hurt my best friend at my wedding. I don't want to invite her just because it's easier for everyone else. So, AITA for deciding that Amy isn't welcome at my wedding. AITA for refusing to allow my sister-in-law to bring her emotional support animal to our wedding. So, this all started a few months ago when my fiancé, let's call him Mark, and I began planning our wedding. We've been together for 5 years and finally decided it was time to get married. Our families are very close, so we wanted to keep the ceremony relatively small, inviting about 100 guests, mostly close family and friends. It was supposed to be a big celebration, something to remember for the rest of our lives. One of the most important things to me about our wedding was that I wanted everything to be perfect. I'm not a bridezilla, but I do want the day to go smoothly, and I've been envisioning this day since I was little. I also knew that some things were going to need to be compromised due to family dynamics and personalities. One of those things involved my sister-in-law, Clara. Clara has been in my life for about 6 years now. She's the younger sister of Mark, and honestly, we've had our ups and downs, but I've always tried to be nice and understanding. The issue that I've had with Clara is that she has this emotional support dog. Let's call him Max. Now, I'm all for emotional support animals and understand how important they can be to people who have mental health issues. But here's where things get complicated. Clara has some anxiety issues, and Max is very much a part of her daily routine. From what I understand, Max isn't a service dog in the traditional sense, meaning he isn't trained to perform specific tasks to assist with Clara's condition. He's more of a comfort animal, and Clara always insists that he's a necessity for her to feel comfortable in social situations. She's never without him, and it's been made clear that wherever she goes, Max is coming too. I had no problem with this for the most part until it came to the wedding. Mark and I had been working with a wedding planner to choose the venue, and I had been very clear that I wanted the ceremony and reception to be held in a very formal setting. The venue we chose had a strict no pets policy, except for service animals. This is where I started to get a bit anxious. I initially didn't think it would be a big deal. I assumed Clara would understand, and maybe make arrangements for someone else to look after Max for a few hours while she attended the wedding. But when I casually mentioned the no pets policy to Clara, she immediately became defensive and said that Max was coming, whether the venue allowed it or not. She argued that Max was necessary for her to feel safe and calm at such a big social event, especially one as emotionally charged as a wedding. I tried to explain that while I understand she feels attached to Max, the venue has strict rules, and we couldn't make exceptions. I also expressed that having a dog at our wedding would create complications. Food, seating, the potential for the dog to get stressed in such a big crowd, and the general chaos of having a dog at a formal event. Clara didn't take this well. She told me I was being insensitive to her needs, and that she would feel completely isolated without Max. She even went as far as to say that if she wasn't allowed to bring him, she wouldn't come at all. It was like a threat, but it was clear that she was serious about it. At this point, I felt cornered. I didn't want to lose my relationship with Mark's family or have any drama on the big day, but I also felt like I couldn't give in to this demand. I mean, it's one thing to accommodate someone's emotional support animal in casual settings, but this was our wedding. There were going to be plenty of people with allergies, not to mention the logistics of having a dog in a venue with food, guests, and decorations everywhere. It just wasn't a situation where I thought a dog could be safely included. After some back and forth, I ended up telling Clara that I loved her and understood her need for Max, but that I couldn't make an exception. I said that if she felt she couldn't attend without him, then I would be devastated, but I couldn't change the venue's rules. This didn't go over well. She was furious and said that I was being selfish and that she would be out of place at the wedding if Max wasn't there to keep her calm. She then sent me a long text saying that I was being judgmental and unsympathetic. After a few days of silence, Clara reached out to Mark and told him that she felt betrayed by both of us. She said that she understood my desire for a perfect wedding, but that I wasn't taking her mental health seriously. She went on about how her relationship with me was never going to be the same if we didn't make accommodations for Max. Mark, of course, was caught in the middle. He told me that he understood my position, but that Clara was his sister and that her mental health was important to him as well. He asked me if I could maybe consider bending the rules just for her, but I stood firm. I didn't want to ruin our wedding day by creating an atmosphere of tension, and I honestly felt like it was my right to decide what happens at my wedding. I also worried that if I gave in, it would set a precedent for future events. What happens when she wants Max at family dinners or holidays? I didn't want to feel like I had to compromise on every big event just because she couldn't go without him. The situation has left me feeling guilty and unsure. On one hand, I don't think it's fair to compromise the integrity of our wedding for one person, but on the other hand, I feel like I might be a little too harsh on her needs. I've always been the one to give in to family drama to keep the peace, but this time, I didn't want to be the one who folded. Now Clara isn't speaking to me, and there's been a lot of tension between Mark and I. I just want to have a beautiful wedding day, but I also don't want to lose a family member over something like this. So, AITA for refusing to let Clara bring Max to our wedding? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay with me after she accused me of not being family-oriented enough? So I, 30F, have been married to my husband, 33M, for almost 5 years. We don't have kids yet, but we've talked about it. My husband's family is pretty big, and there's a lot of drama between his siblings. His sister, Emma, 28F, has always been a bit of a problem in our relationship, but she and I have managed to get along to some degree, mostly because we avoid each other. I've always felt like she judges me for not having the same value she does when it comes to family and being there for others. But recently, things got more complicated. Emma and her husband, let's call him Mike, have been going through a tough time financially. They recently moved to another city after Emma lost her job, and Mike's freelance work hasn't been paying well. They've been bouncing between staying with friends and renting temporary places, which has been rough. I get it. It's stressful. But here's where the problem starts. Last month, Emma reached out to me asking if she and Mike could stay with my husband and me for a few weeks. She said they were trying to figure things out and needed a place to lay low while they searched for more stable work and housing. My initial instinct was to say no, not because I don't care about them, but because we already have a full house with both of us working full-time and we value our privacy. My husband agreed with me that it wasn't the best idea, but since we were both in agreement, we decided to politely decline the offer. I was expecting Emma to be disappointed, maybe a little upset, but I didn't think she would react the way she did. Instead of just saying okay, she got really passive-aggressive about it. She started sending me long messages saying things like, "I can't believe you wouldn't even try to help family out when we're struggling, and it's sad to see how little you care about your family's well-being." I tried to explain that we simply didn't have the space, and it wasn't personal, but she wasn't having it. Over the next week, the messages got more intense. She started questioning my commitment to my marriage, telling me that my husband and I seemed too comfortable in our little bubble and were ignoring the real-world problems that family faces. She accused me of shutting her out and not being a team player because I didn't immediately drop everything to help her. I tried to brush it off, but it started getting to me. The whole situation felt like she was trying to manipulate me into guilt-tripping her way into our home. It was around this time that she called me one evening, completely breaking down. She said she had nobody else to turn to and that it was heartbreaking to be in this situation and feel like I was turning my back on her. She even said that our relationship as sisters-in-law would never be the same after this, and that my refusal to help would always be a stain on our bond. At this point, I had had enough. I told her that we still cared about her and wanted to support her in other ways, like helping her find temporary housing or connecting her with people we knew who might be able to help. But I made it clear that inviting her to stay with us wasn't going to work for us right now. I wasn't going to sacrifice my and my husband's peace of mind for someone who wasn't respecting our boundaries. Emma didn't take that well at all. She started calling me selfish and even accused me of being a terrible wife because, according to her, if my husband didn't agree to help, I was the one influencing him to say no. I was completely taken aback by that, as my husband and I make decisions together. I could tell that she was spiraling, and I felt a little bit guilty, but I also knew that I was being reasonable. She needed space, not to be coddled into thinking she could move in with us without considering how it might impact us. A few days later, my husband's parents reached out to us, asking what was going on because Emma had told them the whole story, painting me as the villain. They said they couldn't believe I would turn my back on family in their time of need. They told me that family always comes first, and that I was being too harsh. That stung, especially since they've never been the type to involve themselves in sibling conflicts. I told them that I wasn't trying to hurt Emma, but I had to be realistic about what I could handle. They didn't seem to understand. Over the next week, Emma continued to reach out, demanding answers and telling me how hurt she was. I tried to stay calm and explained, once again, that I wasn't saying no to her personally, but to the living situation. She didn't want to hear it, though. In her eyes, it wasn't just about the logistics. It was about how she felt abandoned, and nothing I said seemed to make a difference. At this point, I started to feel like no matter what I did, I couldn't win. I was either selfish for not helping, or I was ignoring the family code. It became clear that she was more interested in being upset than actually understanding my side. After that, things got quieter for a while. We didn't hear from Emma for about 2 weeks, but I found out from my husband that she'd been telling everyone in the family that I was cold-hearted and too focused on my own life to care about the struggles of others. A few family members reached out to express their concern about me being so detached from family values, and it really started to eat at me. I told my husband I was starting to feel like the entire family was turning against me, and he agreed that this was getting out of hand. He tried to talk to Emma, but she didn't want to listen. I felt like I was stuck in a no-win situation. I tried to explain to my husband that I wasn't wrong for setting boundaries, but it felt like nobody was on my side. So here I am, torn between standing my ground and feeling like the bad guy. It's a complicated situation, and I honestly don't know what the right thing is anymore. I'm still frustrated, but I also miss the good parts of my relationship with Emma, even if we've always had some tension. But at this point, I feel like I'm being punished for choosing what's best for my marriage and my peace of mind. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay with us, even though she's struggling? Am I really that wrong for setting this boundary? Or am I just a selfish person? I, 29F, have a sister, Emily, 32F, who has always been a bit entitled. We come from a relatively well-off family, and both our parents did very well for themselves. Unfortunately, our father passed away a few years ago, and my mother has been slowly but steadily distributing his inheritance to both of us in chunks. We each received about the same amount, though my mom held back a bit of the inheritance to help out with the family home and some investments. At first, Emily and I were on good terms after Dad passed. We did the usual grieving together and helped Mom out, but as time went on, Emily started showing a more selfish side. She started buying expensive things, going on lavish trips, and generally living beyond her means. I didn't really care at first. It's her money, after all. But I noticed her starting to ask for loans from Mom and me, and it got really uncomfortable when she started demanding financial help for things like vacations and random luxuries she wanted to buy. I always said no when she asked for loans, but after a while, the requests stopped being polite. It turned into her straight up saying, "Hey, I need money for X, and you have enough, so just give it to me." There was no please or even any acknowledgement that it wasn't my responsibility. She also seemed to act like the inheritance was hers as much as mine, and we should just share it, even though she hadn't been involved in any of the work around it or the logistics of settling my father's estate. A few months ago, Emily got engaged. I was happy for her, but it didn't take long for things to start going downhill again. She told me that her wedding was going to be extravagant and that it was going to cost a lot of money. Her fiancé, let's call him Ben, comes from a wealthy family, so the couple was planning a fancy wedding with a huge guest list. They were going to have a destination wedding in another country, and of course, she asked me if I'd be able to pay for part of the trip, her idea being that since I had so much money, it wouldn't be a big deal. I told her that I didn't have money to spare for a destination wedding and that I wouldn't be able to cover my trip expenses or any other costs. This is where it started getting weird. Emily told me that she understood my financial situation, but that family helps family. She went on to say that I could just borrow from the inheritance to cover my portion. I told her no, and that it was inappropriate for her to ask me for that. We had a big argument about it. I explained that the inheritance was meant to be divided equally, and it wasn't for her to dip into for her wedding, especially since it wasn't something I planned for. She didn't take well to this and started making passive-aggressive comments every time we talked. She'd tell me that I didn't care enough about her wedding or that I was ruining the family dynamic by not supporting her. She even told me that if I didn't help, I might as well not come to the wedding at all. At this point, I felt like I was being emotionally blackmailed, so I started pulling back from the situation. I said I wasn't going to argue with her about money anymore and that I wasn't comfortable with the way she was pressuring me. I tried to keep things cordial, but Emily started telling our relatives and some mutual friends that I was being selfish and ruining her big day. I started getting texts from people, some of them telling me I was wrong for not helping my sister out when she needed me most. Weeks later, she came back to me with an even bigger demand. She wanted a large chunk of my inheritance to pay for the wedding. She said that she couldn't afford the full cost and was counting on me to support her dream wedding. She claimed that if I loved her, I would do this for her because, after all, family always helps each other out. She tried to guilt-trip me, even saying that if I didn't help, she might not even want me there at all. At this point, I just snapped. I told her that I wouldn't be attending the wedding if she continued to make demands like that. I told her it was beyond unreasonable to ask me to fund her wedding and that I had already given her plenty of support in other ways. I told her that if she couldn't respect my boundaries, I would not be a part of the wedding or any more of her manipulative schemes. She didn't respond to me for a few days, and then I started getting bombarded by messages from my family. Our mom, especially, was upset and told me that I should just give Emily the money she's asking for because it's just a wedding and you'll regret not helping her later. Other relatives reached out to me as well, saying I was being unreasonable and should do whatever it takes to keep the peace for the sake of family. I'm still holding firm in my decision, but now I'm feeling guilty. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister or my family, but I also don't feel like it's fair for Emily to keep asking for more and more when she's clearly not budgeting responsibly. I don't want to feel taken advantage of. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding and not giving her part of my inheritance. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he uninvited me for something I did years ago. So I, 28F, have a bit of family drama going on right now, and I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong or if my brother, 30M, is being unreasonable. Here's the background. A few years ago, my brother and I had a huge falling out. I had just gone through a pretty rough breakup, and I was in a bad place mentally. I was living in the city and was broke, so I moved back home with our parents to try and get myself together. I hadn't really thought about how difficult it would be living under the same roof again, especially after how much I'd resented living there when I was younger. It's important to mention that I've always been a little unconventional, I guess. I've always been independent, and I was a bit of a rebellious teen. My brother, on the other hand, has always been more of the golden child type. He's got a steady job, a long-term girlfriend, and generally plays by the rules. Growing up, my parents often favored him and gave me the harder time which I never really held against him since he didn't ask for it. But I always felt like I was walking in his shadow. Fast forward to me living back at home. The first few weeks were fine, but eventually I started to feel overwhelmed by everything. My breakup, being back in a house I didn't really like, and just struggling with a lot of personal issues. One night, after a particularly bad argument with my mom about my job situation, I ended up venting to my brother. I didn't exactly have a great way of expressing myself, but I just needed someone to listen. I told him how I felt like I could never live up to what our parents expected of me, and how hard it was to be compared to him all the time. I also told him how I was struggling with depression and how my breakup really messed with my sense of self-worth. My brother's response was, well, not what I expected. Instead of offering support or comfort, he told me that I needed to grow up and stop being so dramatic. He said I was being selfish by letting my emotions get in the way of taking responsibility for my life. I get that he probably didn't know how to handle my emotions, but it felt like he was completely dismissing everything I was going through. It stung because in that moment, I just needed someone to be there for me. Instead, he made me feel even more alone. Things got worse after that. He started calling me lazy and complaining to our parents about how I wasn't doing enough to get my life together. To be honest, I wasn't doing as much as I should have, but I was dealing with some serious mental health struggles, and it felt like no one understood that. I didn't want to stay at home anymore, so I moved out after a few months. It wasn't the best financial decision, but I needed my space. After moving out, I didn't speak to him much. There were a few texts here and there, but nothing meaningful. I needed time to heal, and the last thing I wanted was to keep interacting with someone who had so little empathy for what I was going through. That was about 2 years ago. Since then, I've been in therapy, worked on my mental health, and am in a much better place. I've got a new job, I've moved to a new city, and I'm starting to feel like myself again. I've even started dating someone seriously. It's been a tough road, but I'm doing okay. A few weeks ago, my brother reached out to me out of the blue. He apologized for what happened, said he was immature, and that he's been working on himself as well. He mentioned that he was getting married soon and invited me to the wedding. At first, I was kind of surprised, but I was glad to hear that he wanted to reconcile. I was still hesitant, though, because a lot of the hurt from back then still stings. I told him I wasn't sure if I could come to the wedding. I felt like there was a lot unresolved between us, and I didn't know if I was ready to face him, especially in such a big family setting. He seemed understanding at first, but then started pushing harder for me to attend. He said that it would mean a lot to him and that he didn't want me to miss out on such an important day just because of what happened in the past. I told him that while I appreciated the apology, I didn't feel ready to just jump back into family events like nothing had happened. I also mentioned that I felt like his apology was a bit rushed and didn't fully address how hurt I was by his lack of support back when I needed it most. He got defensive and said that I was holding a grudge and that it was time to move on. Eventually, he told me that if I wasn't willing to come, then maybe it was better that I didn't come at all. That hurt. I don't know if I was expecting him to beg or something, but his ultimatum felt like a slap in the face. He said that it was too much drama to have someone there who was unwilling to forgive and forget, and he told me to stay out of his life if I wasn't going to make the effort. Now, I'm stuck in this weird position. On the one hand, I understand that he's trying to move on from the past, but on the other hand, I don't feel like he's truly grasping why I'm so hurt. He seems to want me to just show up and act like everything is fine, but I can't do that. I don't think I'm being unreasonable for wanting him to acknowledge how much his actions affected me. So, now I'm wondering, AITA for not wanting to attend my brother's wedding after everything that happened? Should I just suck it up and go for the sake of family? Or is it okay to prioritize my emotional well-being and not attend? AITA for asking my best friend to choose between me and her boyfriend after he insulted me at my birthday party? So I, 28F, have been best friends with Sarah, 29F, for almost 10 years. We've been through a lot together. High school drama, college, breakups, and everything in between. We've always had each other's backs, and I've always considered her my closest friend. A few months ago, Sarah started dating Tom, 32M, and they've been pretty serious. I met Tom a few times, and to be honest, I don't like him. He seems nice on the surface, but there's something about him that rubs me the wrong way. I never said anything about this to Sarah because I know how hard it is to navigate relationships, and she's an adult who can make her own choices. Plus, I didn't want to be that friend who meddles in relationships. But over the past couple of months, I've noticed some things about Tom that have made me more uncomfortable. For starters, he's very dismissive of me. Whenever we're hanging out, he acts like I'm invisible or like I'm a third wheel. He frequently makes passive-aggressive comments about how I'm always around when Sarah is with him, and once he even said to me directly, "Do you ever spend time with your own friends? Or are you just trying to latch on to Sarah all the time?" This made me super uncomfortable, and I brushed it off as I'm being rude, but I kept my distance. Fast forward to my birthday last week. I've been planning my birthday party for months. It was going to be a small get-together with close friends, Sarah included. I made it clear to her that I wanted it to be a chill, intimate evening. No big celebrations, just a few drinks, games, and fun conversations. Sarah asked if she could bring Tom, and I said sure, because I didn't want to be rude, even though I wasn't thrilled about it. I didn't really feel comfortable around him, but I didn't want to make Sarah choose between me and her boyfriend, so I agreed. The party started off fine. Everyone was chatting, playing games, and enjoying themselves. But as the night went on, Tom started getting more and more obnoxious. He kept making snide comments about my place, about the food, and about the people I invited. It was like he was trying to make everyone uncomfortable. Eventually, he started mocking me, saying things like, "Do you always throw parties like this?" Or, "Is this your first attempt?" And wow, this party is so much better than your last one. Maybe you're learning something. At this point, I felt humiliated, but I didn't want to make a scene. I tried to laugh it off, but it kept going. The more he spoke, the more irritated I became. The tipping point came when we were playing a drinking game. The game was supposed to be lighthearted, but Tom started targeting me. Every time it was my turn, he makes some sarcastic comment like, "Well, if you can't handle a drink, I guess that's your problem, huh?" Or, "Maybe you shouldn't drink so much if you can't take the heat." I was already feeling uncomfortable, but this felt like blatant disrespect. I'm not a huge drinker, and I don't get drunk at parties, but I didn't think I needed to explain that to him. At one point, after he made yet another rude comment, I'd had enough. I looked at Sarah and said, "Are you going to let him talk to me like this?" and asked if she could talk to him. She immediately got defensive and told me to relax and not make a big deal out of it. I was furious. I couldn't believe she was taking his side over mine, especially when he was being downright nasty. I went to the bathroom to calm down, and when I came out, Sarah and Tom were having a heated conversation in the kitchen. I overheard Tom saying something like, "What's her problem? She's always been like this. So dramatic. She can't handle anything." Hearing that made my blood boil. It was one thing to disrespect me in front of everyone, but now he was talking behind my back like I wasn't even there. When I returned to the living room, I confronted Sarah. I told her that I didn't appreciate how Tom had treated me, and that if she was going to continue dating him, I didn't want to be around him anymore. She tried to brush it off and said I was overreacting, but I told her that I had had enough. I wasn't going to sit there and let him belittle me on my own birthday. I told her I didn't want her to bring him to my parties anymore, and that if she was going to stay with him, I would need to take a step back from our friendship. Sarah was furious. She said I was being ridiculous, and that I should have just ignored him. She accused me of trying to break them up, and said I was being selfish. She said I couldn't expect her to choose between her boyfriend and her best friend, because that wasn't fair to either of them. The whole conversation got really heated, and in the end, I told her that I was done. I wasn't going to keep pretending like everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. I told her I needed some space from her, and that maybe she should reconsider who she was dating if he was making me feel this way. Sarah hasn't spoken to me since then. She's been posting pictures of herself and Tom together on social media, and she's even made a few passive-aggressive comments in her stories about toxic friendships and drama. I've been feeling guilty, but at the same time, I don't think I did anything wrong. I don't think I should have to tolerate disrespect from her boyfriend, especially on my birthday. So now I'm wondering if I overreacted. AITA for asking my best friend to choose between me and her boyfriend? I know it sounds dramatic, but I feel like I'm in the right here. I'm just not sure if I went about it the wrong way. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.